Knock, knock. Who's there? New camera. Oh my God. Oh man, this camera is amazing. This shot is amazing. I wish I was better looking. Welcome to Starbase. Hello, Sunday Fun Day to you. Happy Sunday Fun Day. I hope your Sunday is a fun day. None of that work. I'm sorry I even do that. I'm Captain John. What's your name, John? What's your name? Come on. I'm not seeing my name on the where's my all right. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm Captain John. Hi. And you know, I don't do this alone. Thank goodness for everyone involved. You especially. I do this with the best damn first officer in the fleet. I don't care what Shelby says. This is the man you want to follow. Say hello to Commander Flobo Boy.
Captain, you got to go to the branding tab and then show display names. Welcome to Starbase 80s.
How did that get switched up? Boom! I am so happy something worked out today.
Yeah.
It's so exciting to me. Oh, Mr. Boyce.
Yes, sir.
When you told me about the Logitech C920 Pro HD webcam, I don't think you sold it enough.
You're shilling harder than I do for Uncle Bunk's trunk. Available now on Etsy. But yeah, welcome. It's the future, man.
None of these promotions are paid, by the way. Not one of them. None of these are paid promotions. Oh my goodness. So, we had a great time with Star Trek: The Next Generation, Best of Both Worlds Part 1, because you were right here. You were right here. I did not mic you very well. I'm sorry about that.
It's fine. It was more of a stunt cast, you know what I mean? Like, oh, he's actually here.
What I loved was the people who were watching and commenting could hear every word. So I was worried about that. Everybody was able to get every word. So that's cool. I still don't know how the audio is going to shake out for the podcast, but we'll see. We'll see. Who knows?
We'll see.
Probably be good. I think you're right about the stunt casting thing. I think the an observation was made by our friend Craig Lubin. That you and I are actually funnier when we're in the same room.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. See, he's going to cancel the show. He's going to not watch. And then the last episode has brought him back in. So we do this once a year to keep Craig in the shade. Please don't go, Craig. Please. We need you.
Sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet for us. There was a thing back in television back in the day where they would measure the ratings for a month usually, but then they boiled it down to 1 week where you had a chance to get your biggest ratings, and they would do crazy stuff. Seinfeld's getting married. No, he's not.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
For some reason, in the period of the 90s, all these Sweet Weeks episodes had Lonnie Anderson in it. It's like, why? Oh, was she that popular or that available? I don't know what was going on.
You know something? I think both can be true. I think both can be true. Lonnie Anderson. Did you ever see Lonnie Anderson when she was living up here in LA?
No.
I actually saw her at the movie theater in Sherman Oaks, the Galleria.
Ooh, the Galleria.
And I was so tempted to walk up to her. That's like one of the only celebrities where I was ever so tempted to walk up and say, "Hi, I'm a big fan. I think you're beautiful. I think you're awesome." I wish I had. I really
You know
wish
what's funny? Like, I would say I'd never get starstruck, but at the same time, I went to the beach this morning and I saw an attractive woman who wasn't famous, and I was like, "Oh, like she's so pretty. What do I say?" It's the opposite for me, man.
So the lack of fame,
Right,
is what intimidated you.
just be an influencer, please.
That's like the most Los Angeles thing in the world. She wasn't famous, and I didn't even know how to talk to her.
I didn't know what to say. So, doing something during the day?
What do you say to someone who doesn't get paid for this?
Yeah, not for the gram.
You could always work the gram angle. You really could. You
Yeah.
are an influencer.
I dropped the ball hard, man. She was pretty.
Well, sometimes just that winning smile of yours, that's all you need. Sometimes you don't need to work that hard.
That is the most like New England bless your heart I've ever heard. What?
As I was
you
saying,
hate me, John.
As I was saying, I thought, no, it's pure love. But as I was saying it, I thought this is the sort of thing you say when you put down the plate of cookies and you're filling the teacup.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Dean.
Well, you've just got a wonderful smile, and that's all you need, mister.
It's like, hold it two hands. Thanks, John.
Should be cocoa. So I can get some marshmallows in there for you. We're talking about everything except for Star Trek. So let's start talking some Star Trek.
Yeah.
We, of course, have already last week covered The Best of Both Worlds Part 1 from Star Trek The Next Generation. I think I got all the words in there.
I like it.
It was, as everyone knows, I'm covering ground everybody knows, it was the final episode of season 3 and a cliffhanger, which means whatever happened in that episode, and we'll get to that, was then unresolved for 3 long months in 1990. The summer of 1990, Flobo, any memories?
Let's see. I think I was gearing up to start school that fall. So I did not want to do anything require intelligence. I traded as my last bastion of freedom.
That's very age appropriate and very healthy.
Or just like starting first grade. I was like, oh no, I'm not doing that there. No, I can't do it. Yeah, that's pretty much.
It wasn't first grade. Wait, first grade was 1990 for you?
I believe I get those two confused. I think no, 1990. I was going into kindergarten. Yes, I was going into kindergarten.
What? You're that young?
1990 is like 30 years ago, though, or 30
Well,
years.
yeah, but I mean, I was 28 years old. I'd been living with the love of my life for about a year and a half, 2 years at that point.
What a flex. I'm old. No, yeah, 89, 90, 91. Yeah, I want to say going 90, I was going to kindergarten. Confirmed.
Damn. Wow. The difference in our ages is monumental. Holy cow.
I need one of those like Townsville tidbits. No, Pito's old, but John is older.
I mean, my wife and I were talking about having kids. You were a kid.
Yeah, quite literally.
That's how long. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, that summer, I can tell you, we were not used to. We were not used to cliffhangers in Star Trek. That had not really been done before.
Mm-hmm.
It had artificially been done in the original series by splitting up the two halves of the cage, or menagerie, I believe is what it was called. But this was a very unsure time. Now, when we were showing the show last week, there was discussion from our commenters that there had been allegedly, I have researched and not found any solid proof of it, but there had been allegedly a renegotiation of Patrick Stewart's contract. And that will figure into this episode quite a bit, actually. The idea of where Patrick Stewart was at the time. He's playing Jean-Luc Picard. He's been doing it for 3 seasons now. And there's also, speaking of old television rules, there was also an old television rule that said, if you get 3 seasons of a show, you're in.
Mhm.
You are in. Because 3 seasons means you can go into syndication.
Right.
And syndication is where everybody makes their money. You've recorded the show, you've gotten the show out. Now the show can be packaged. It can be sent to, I mean, when you and I have been overseas, we've run into Star Trek.
Yeah.
You know, I worked for 4 days in Greece, Athens, Greece.
Wow.
And they played Star Trek every day.
Yeah. I didn't know you did that. That's cool.
Yeah. It was for crazy. I know you were over there. You were in Italy DJing a wedding, I believe.
Yeah. 2018.
Yeah. And that's not too long ago. Because I mean, I was in Greece in 1995. Again, the 90s, probably one of my best decades.
Oh yeah,
Can't
it's really
lie.
weird being a 90s kid because all the TV shows where people like look in the camera going, it's the 90s. I had no context for anything, but it was, hey, we never do that here. It's the 2020s. Like no one does that. I don't know why the 90s was different.
You know what's funny? I think the 2020s are going to be remembered through memes.
Ah, yeah.
And I think it's going to be mostly about, I didn't think anything could be worse than 2020 till 2021 came along. Woo, woo. A million of those.
The jazz womp. I love it.
I love that you can actually hear my little jazzy playing in my sad trombone. Dizzy Gillespie, take it.
It's got soul.
Now I have to interrupt my interruptions of myself while I was interrupting myself. I have no idea where the conversation is. So how you doing, Flobo?
You know what? I'm confused about this week's episode, the part 2. Because as somebody who's unfortunately or fortunately watched things scattered about in the classic Star Trek lore,
Very much out of order.
I thought for sure there'd be a lot more Wolf 359 stuff. But it was kind of like, oh yeah, that happened. So anyway, Borg. I was like, what? I don't know.
That's a really good point. It's a really good point because one of the things that happens in this episode is the confrontation, Starfleet makes its stand at Wolf 359. That reverberates through all of Star Trek from that point on. So when we get into Deep Space Nine, Wolf 359 is, and were you thinking of this the whole time? Because I was myself. Wolf 359 is where Captain Sisko, Commander Sisko at one point, loses his wife.
Oh yeah.
His wife is killed.
Right.
In the Battle of Wolf 359.
I hate to say it because I sound very bloodthirsty, but that's what I thought. I thought it was some like giant, like, Deus Machina bomb, and there'd be blood out in the streets, or there'd be kind of like a triage scene. And I guess I thought that would be like the crux of it. So I'm not sure if that makes me disappointed in this episode or like commend the writers of DS9 for taking a smaller, quote unquote, event and pulling from that. So I'm kind of like, but going into this one, I thought for sure it was gonna be like a giant battle on that planet or planet.
Yeah. And the fact that didn't happen, that's a good point. I think it is a star. The fact that didn't happen, how did that make you feel? because that means the Borg are just like, hey, you stop, Borg, smash right through. Hey, once again, the Mars Defense Force, stop, Borg, smash right through. Is that hitting you and making you go,
So
wow,
I
the
am
Borg
so
are a great
glad.
enemy?
Before we went live, I said I watched this episode about 10 days ago, right after I did the live episode at the compound. And when I finished it, I was disappointed. I was kind of like, you know what? These people out here saying it's the best episode ever. They is wrong. But I thought about it a couple days and I said, you know what? It reminds me of, and this is a really not weird comparison if you know the show, the CSI episode Grave Danger. When Nick Stokes was buried alive in a box for 2 episodes, where you imagine if you're living it, in that case, George Eads, who plays Nick Stokes, had back problems, had taken sabbaticals before. There was talk about him being removed from the show. Him getting buried alive would be a good way to kill somebody. You weren't sure if they were going to come back or not, and you're wondering what would the whole thing be if he did not come back. I think if I was living it, I would have appreciated that more. So like if I watched this episode like Saturday night before Starbase 80, I'll probably rip this to shreds. But after thinking about it, I go, oh yeah, I get it. Kind of the anticipation of what could have been.
Yes, that really is a huge part of it. And as Craig Lubin observes, when the second part of the episode started production, the alleged contract negotiations were resolved at the 11th hour. So there had been talk. Now, again, I have not found solid proof of this. I just know that this is the chatter out among the Star Trekkerati.
Okay.
And I want money anytime you use that phrase, folks. You're talking about the Star Trek intelligentsia. Oh, great.
Yeah.
I made a new one. Credit me. The word was, and I think there's ample evidence for this in this episode. There had been an attitude change on the set. So once you get to 3 seasons, now you're financially set. Now you can start taking chances. You can start making the show your own. You don't need to follow Gene Roddenberry's recipe so closely anymore. And that's what happened. And that made the show tenfold better. The show was so brave. I actually thought there was a chance, and I told you this before, that Patrick Stewart, aka Captain Picard, aka Locutus, the Borg, I thought for sure they might stay in that, they might keep him as Locutus, which would have been the ballsiest, most amazing thing a TV show has ever done. How do you feel? How do you feel about the fact they didn't do that, the fact they teased it?
Well, I'm going to go right to my notes here. And I'm going to jump around because, frankly, whatever. You're not trying to get me Emmys here.
Crisscross, going to make you jump. Come on.
That came out when I was 7 years old.
Damn!
I was age appropriate to wear my clothes backward. My mom hated it. It should have been a 6-episode arc. It should have been Locutus goes away, and there are episodes of them trying to find a scientific way to turn Picard, or days when they have him incarcerated and he's rejecting methods, and make that a thing. I understand syndication is different, and I know episodic things really work, but the fact that it wasn't like, we got you now and the ship fades to black, or here's a magic potion, change. We got 25 minutes of him changing. To me, was like, you guys shot the middle, and I felt like you could have gone either way to have a stronger finish.
Now, this is absolutely fascinating, because one of the things I did not do that I should have done in this episode of Starbase 80 is remind the viewer at home that Flobo, his first real Star Trek, was Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah,
that's the one he showed up every week for. He followed it week by week. He watched it as it was growing, and having watched it myself, I gotta say, I love it. I absolutely love the show. It's a different kind of show from these old Star Treks, and again, it's so current for me, Star Trek Next Generation, that it feels really weird for that to be an old Star Trek.
Yeah.
So I love being in this position, but I also love hearing your opinions. coming from Discovery, because yes, it could absolutely have been like half a season of, are we going to recover Jean-Luc Picard? That
Right.
should have been, I agree with you. That should have very much been in jeopardy. How did you like what was going to replace him? Let's say that was going to happen.
Mhm.
How do you like the fact that maybe he wouldn't have been there, and now it's Captain Riker and First Officer Shelby, who has already said to Riker, I want your job, you're in my way.
I think that would be a cool short term. Like, I understand. Imagine we didn't know what we knew about episodic versus serial television and
Good point.
syndications like that. I think that would be a cool small arc, because Riker is a character. When he's in the first officer position, we want more. We want more. But when something happens and Riker is in that first position, he's kind of like, oh, I don't belong here. Not as bad as Chakotay. Chakotay's the worst. It's like, hey, Chakotay, you're in charge. Oh no, I'm not built for this. But we're kind of more into the idea of Riker being captain right now. But if there really was a dynamic shift of this team that submits to Picard when he goes, belay that order, to having this internal strife, as anti-Roddenberry as it is, it'd be kind of fun if you know it's going to be temporary.
Right. Yeah, good point. And that's exactly how I would have signed up for it too. It's like, if this is temporary, I'm cool with Shelby. But I have to admit, I was one of those fans that, oh, she just got my goat. She made me so mad.
Yeah. She got up early one time? I hate morning people. Patooey.
Everything about her. Honest to God. Everything. It's so funny. I was to produce the opening, credits. I go out and I look for pictures, and then I get the pictures and I change them. Okay. So I'm not actually using the pictures. I do modify them. Fair use. So I went out there looking for certain pictures, and I ran into the part of the internet where people make pornographic pictures out of characters from Star Trek.
Oh, the main part of the internet. Everything is porn, baby.
Oh my God, Shelby. Oh my God. The guys who do these drawings, they love them. They love themselves / hate themselves some Shelby.
Should I go down this rabbit hole?
I'm just gonna say B&D S&M. I'm just gonna throw some letters at you. It's a Sunday afternoon. Sorry about it, everybody. But holy cow, they put a lot of work into this.
We are past the point of being apologetic on this. You said Sunday Fun Day, right? Well, we're going to get just that here.
This is a character who was on 2 episodes of Star Trek. 2 episodes.
Oh, wow. You weren't kidding.
How does that rate you that much porn? 2 episodes.
Oh, my word. Okay, there you go.
Joe Townsend says, M&M's? Why, thank you.
Talk about
don't mind if I do. There's another great point that Joe Townsend makes, which is Shelby brought some much needed conflict to the TNG Next Generation Utopia. That is absolutely true. I did like this negative relationship. I thought it brought out a lot of interesting things in Riker, frankly.
Yeah.
I
think it's okay that Shelby was Shelby and what she wanted to do. Is that because Riker had that reputation of being a scoundrel? It took me a while to realize where Riker was. Because at first it kind of looked like, no, I want your job. He's like, talk dirty to me. Like, no, I want you unemployed.
That's there.
Riker,
yeah, that is so weird, and that is so there. Yeah.
But it took me a while to be like, okay, no, they're on the professional level. So I kind of wish Shelby was a dude, but I wanted to know that was done earlier. Like, no, I'm not into her. She sucks. It was my job. Yeah.
If the rumors are true, and Star Trek was getting ready for a post Patrick Stewart Next Generation, I honestly think they were hinting really hard at there being a will they or won't they between Shelby and Riker. And I got to say, myself, not a big fan of that. And part of that is the like size and age difference.
Oh,
He towers over her.
that's what
And
girls
she's
like, though,
quite
right?
young. What's that?
That's what girls like. I like a guy who's taller than me. What about personality? I don't know. Is he taller than me? Like, it's always weird.
Girls do like height. That is true. The other day, there was a conversation that a couple of women I was working with were having about taller men. And they were like, taller men don't like shorter women, do they? I'm like, my wife is the tallest woman I ever dated, and she is 5'7".
Yeah.
I dated women who were 5'4".
I think
Dated
we
a
don't
girl who was
care.
5'2".
It's like, is she hot? Like, we don't, or is she nice? Like, it's never like, oh man, she's like, I'm 6'1", she's 5'8". It just wouldn't work out. I don't know. I have to wear heels. Like, I never say these things. I never say these things.
I mean that and the weird flirtiness. Let's see what Joe Townsend says. Following up with Shelby later in the series would have been much more interesting than other returning guest characters like Bach. Picard season 3, perhaps. I mean, look, I gotta say, having watched this episode, this two-parter many times now, I am at the point where I can get over my initial rejection of Shelby and be like, man, I really wish I'd seen more of her. I really liked her. And here's another point Joe brings up. She also would have been a great recurring character on DS9 as the Dominion War heated up. I mean, that's the thing. She was good in combat. It would have made sense if she was part of anti-Dominion forces, or if she was part of anti-Maquis forces. That would have been interesting too, maybe. But Deep Space Nine. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Boyce, I interrupted you.
No, so I like that idea. I like it.
Now that we got a few people in the room and I have you in front of me, Mr. Boyce, I have to say, this episode, I mean, the story arc certainly is huge for me. I love this story arc. But this episode, I think it's better than part 1.
Ooh.
Hot take?
No. I think part 2 is better than part 1, but here's a hot take. Here's scorching hot take, y'all. Star Trek fandom, get ready to cancel me. You can follow me at Starbase 80 because not my personal one, because I don't do that. Don't follow this. The Borg, overrated villains. I think they're an overrated villain that is just mind, no pun intended, to the point of it having no shred of interest in this. And this is why it totally flopped in Picard this season.
Oh my God. Wow.
That's right.
Wow.
I said it. With your cubes and your resistance is futile. It's fun. It's cute. That's what
By the pointy sword of Kahless, I am shocked to my core.
I know that reference now. It's great.
Okay, hang on. Just let me get my bearings. I'm trying to argue with you. Okay, well, here's the thing. Okay, here's why you're right, and here's why you're wrong.
At the same damn time.
At the same damn time. That's how good you are. It was incremental, the building of the Borg. The introduction of the Borg happened in season 1. You remember that, of Next Generation, where that's dealing with Q. Season 1, I think I'm right about that. But in the episode Q Who, that's where he zaps them across the universe, way out to where the Borg are, forces a confrontation between the Enterprise and the Borg. The Enterprise gets soundly spanked. They beg Q to send them back home. He does. And he characterizes it as, if you're going to go out in deep space, you'd better expect to get a bloody nose. And that's how he characterizes them losing like 15 crew members in that first meeting with the Borg. The Borg is anti-Starfleet. Lots of things are anti-Starfleet.
Am I right?
But I don't think I'm wrong. The Romulans are very not Starfleet. The Klingons very not Starfleet. And these are good things, especially for the show. But I'm kind of at a loss for whether or not the Borg are overrated. I'm not sure how hard I can argue with it.
At the very core of going through space, whether or not we're the smartest guys in the room or the country bumpkins or an Enterprise, there's always a through line of figuring out an aliens or people's culture to figure out with their work or don't. If you have an assimilating culture and they're not Brainiac from Superman, how can I get behind this? And yeah, you gave me 7 of 9, but she was like, you could argue, a lot more interesting after she got on board a Voyager. I don't know, man. Like I like the idea. I love seeing it. I love the Hive and Resistance is Futile, but like as a villain, they're just, we are the bad guys. Bad guys.
Yeah. Man. All right. Well, let's catch up. Joe Townsend says season 1, the neutral zone was the first hint of the Borg presence by colonies being scooped out of the ground. Yeah. Scary. Season 2 gave us Q Who. Thank you very much, Joe. Unfortunately, Flobo's first viewing of Best of Both Worlds comes after overuse of the Borg in Voyager.
I knew it was going to happen. I knew that's going to be like a. That's why I started off saying this, Joe. That because I see things so scattered, I'm sure I'm doing it all wrong when it comes to that kind of thing. But yeah, good point. Very astute.
I mean, look, I think I love learning from your experience, Flobo.
That's what Craig said.
Yeah, let's get Craig's line up there. Some mighty fine tidbits there, sir.
No, I mean Craig Lubin. He's right. Craig Lubin's right. Craig Lubin's right.
Oh no, Craig Lubin. There you go. Craig Lubin says the Borg eventually became Star Trek Next Generation Worf lame. What is it with the brothers hating on Worf?
It overpowered me. It got the best of me. I have Klingon measles.
Why can you not elevate Worf? Why can you not just support him? Just bring him up. Why you always got to bring him down? They made sure that they put that in the okay. This is very interesting because I always remembered it as previously on Star Trek Next Generation, but that's actually not what they say when they show the little preview. It was last time on Star Trek The Next Generation.
Ooh.
Subtle. Yeah. I love that crap. And they make sure that they show the scene where the Borg beam onto the bridge and Worf gets knocked on his freaking ass. Ugh. Tuck your head, kid. Get that chin in. And as Joe Townsend reminds us, I am not a merry man. There is some okay, let's just get over Worf for now. Let's just stop making fun of Worf for now. How did you feel? Okay, first off, I did want to ask everybody in the room, including you, Flobo, out of Star Trek Next Generation episodes, or even, say in my case, out of Star Trek episodes,
okay,
would you say this one was top 10 or top 5? For me, definitely this episode, Best of Both Worlds Part 2, top 5. Easily. Maybe even top 3 for me.
As far as my enjoyment or recommending someone else?
Enjoyment. Let's just go with enjoyment. Your personal Hall of Fame.
The more episodes I watched of TNG, I think a lot of them are good. They're fine. It's like going to Subway. You know what I mean? I'm never disappointed. But I'm never like, titillated. And they're like, oh man, it's the best soggy tomato I've ever had. So I don't really have a ranking of best or worst here. But if I had to recommend this episode to friends, definitely, because this is where the formula gets turned on its head. The guy who was so even keeled as the captain. This wasn't like the mad bones in a TOS episode. This is Picard being compromised. This is totally worth viewing.
And it changes everything going forward.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. When you're watching the episodes and then the movies start coming out, they do make a very big deal about him trying to get over the Borg. And then every time he confronts the Borg, it's just the worst thing in the world.
So this is what I meant about where the decides to end. Part 2 ends with the captain getting his tea, looking outside of the window. I feel that either you don't address that then, or you address that way earlier, because it's kind of like, oh yeah, he's got some trauma. Oh, we're done. All right. I hope they address it next week. They don't. Son of a mother.
They do actually. Yeah. The next week is called Family, I think. And he takes leave. He goes home.
Thank God.
I wasn't sure if I wanted to like make you watch that episode. Honestly, I find it really dull. But it's basically he goes home. His older brother is like, "Well, you're back."
Well, I'm glad. I'm really glad there's some R&R there, because I know that there's references to. Because I mean, Picard goes an apology tour for the rest of his character life, so I'm not totally like But to me, it felt kind of like, oh, here's a chance for him to really tell us how he feels about being one with the machine, and that's see you next week. It's like, wow.
Right. Yeah, I can tell you for people who were there at the time, just speaking as one of those, it's a really old ache. It's a when I used to read X-Men comics faithfully, and this was in the 80s, after Jean Grey, spoiler alert, Jean Grey dies.
First time.
She basically, she dies, she becomes the Phoenix. Then she realizes that the Phoenix is out of control, and the only way for her to get rid of the Phoenix is to put herself down. Woof. So she does that. She sacrifices herself to stop the Phoenix from using her body, using her powers. And she saves everybody. For years afterwards, it didn't look like she was ever coming back. She eventually did. Of course, it's comic books.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, in those years, anytime mentioned her name, anytime somebody disguised themselves as her, just that emotional pull, Craig Lubin goes, Dark Phoenix dies? Yeah, you know she dies. Come on.
3 question mark, 3 exclamation points. He seemed very surprised.
I do like that as a story element. I do like the loss and the fact that the loss keeps hurting. So it even worked for me in season 2 of Picarder. I named it Picarder. I want some money for that.
All these trademarks we're going to avoid because you can't afford to pay you.
Every time I see him called Locutus by a Borg, it just gets me. And I can't be the only fan who feels that way. Like I carry that burden with Captain Picard.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like, again, I'm a newer fan, so please don't drag me gently over the coals, guys.
Drag me gently. Your next book.
No, right? Drag me gently. I get it, and I say the new Trek Brain Trust has been really cool. Not even the old Brain Trust, having these elements throughout DS9, the movies, Picarder. I'll check in the mail. I get that, and I love that. But I guess because of that, the inciting incident I thought would have been more. I thought Picard would have like choked out a child. Not saying I wanted to see that, or I wanted like a specific like human element, or an element a human can understand and go, oh my gosh, this thing pushed him to do things he wouldn't do. Whereas this seemed like the event was, he's one of them, but we got him back. Woo! What a time. You know what I mean? So I felt like I wanted more within these 2 episodes.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I absolutely hear you. I don't know I don't know if they could have done that at the time. I don't know if they would have dared do that at the time. One of the things that I'm proposing, and hear me out on this, Flobo and everybody in the chat, hear me out on this. I do believe the rumor that Patrick Stewart's people were saying to the Star Trek people, yeah, I don't know about this contract. I don't know about this gig. And here's one of the reasons why. I'm going to jump ahead and I'm going to get you to picture this. So they have kidnapped LOCUTUS off of the cube quite cleverly using all Riker ideas, Riker Alpha, Riker Beta.
His sex in the mill too.
They use all these Riker ideas that LOCUTUS wouldn't be able to second guess because they're so Riker, which I kind of dig. Then they get LOCUTUS on the ship. Then they take all of that armor off of him, to the big heavy Dune spacesuit. They take that off him. How about that body on Patrick Stewart? Guy's pretty much rocking an 8-pack.
Can't get mad. I had Oreos on Friday, and I regretted it this morning looking into the mirror. So I respect the hell out of that.
I am at one of my all-time highs in terms of weight. So big fat me sitting there like a beanbag.
You're not fat. Confirmed, you're not fat.
I'm staring up at the TV and I'm going, well, look at that middle-aged man. He's looking pretty damn good.
Okay.
And here's what I think.
Not fat though.
Can't prove it. Here's what I think.
Fat though.
Thank you. I think Patrick Stewart realized that he was the star of the show. I think he was having, I did hear and read rumors that he was having conversations with the executive producers, like, couldn't Picard try different things? Couldn't he be doing stuff that's not all the stuffed shirt captain on the bridge? Couldn't he explore a little more? Couldn't he be doing, and I think they're hearing that. I think he also goes to a Hollywood personal trainer, gets himself in really good shape. And I think he's looking for movie work.
That's all. I think that's totally true. Another CSI reference I can't believe is Billy Peterson, Gil Grissom. And I think it's hard because CSI went on for 20 years, right? I think season 7 or 8 just like took sabbaticals to do theater work. And that was it. With those roles he got in between theater appearances was him crying more or him getting angry more, just to give him something to play with week to week. Because I guess if you're that good at a craftsman, and Gil Grissom or Bill Peterson and Patrick Stewart are classically trained, it could be, kind of hamstrung being told to do this character week in and week out.
I totally respect that. I think you must always be changing. You must always be evolving. Every time I've worked with professional wrestlers, I'm just staring at your wrestling belt your championship. Look at the championship.
Yeah, it's a belt. Damn it.
People get to know who you are, but you should always be modifying who you are. It should always be in motion. And the best people do that. The best celebrities, the most interesting people. Somebody gets known for comedy, so they'll do a little bit of drama. Big movies, so they'll do indie movies. Kind of throw off the path that you're going here. And when you're doing syndicated television in 1990, you're thinking, well, it gets better than this. I'm getting really famous. People are really digging me. I need to try new stuff, is what I'm thinking Patrick Stewart's thinking. And also, more money.
Is that what Dave Caruso? Is that you? I'm just kidding.
David Caruso is a great example because he went from doing Blue, NYPD Blue.
NYPD Blue.
I just kept remembering that joke from Entourage where the bad actor Johnny Drama says, "That's when I was on Blue," And his friend goes, "You were on NYPD Blue?" And he goes, "It was Pacific Blue, and you knew that." Pacific Blue, a USA show about cops on bicycles.
Oh wow!
Oh,
Oh wait, you're actually right. It's cool.
it's
1996 was a crazy time. The 90s were a weird decade. Who greenlights this? The dumbest idea for a cop show.
Are you kidding? Baywatch was a huge show at the time. So this was a way you could get that second camera unit out there shooting women in bikinis and then flash back to the action with our hot people riding bicycles. Anyway, Pacific Blue. Check it out.
Dumbest idea for a cop show since Blind Justice. When you get that blind dude a gun and said defend New York City. Steven Bochco, what were you thinking?
Just give it to the dog. The seeing eye dog can do that. Joe Townsell. Oh my God, Joe Townsell mentions cop rock.
Let's be careful out there. Oh, Steven Bochco.
Steven Bochco is I think Steven Bochco is pretty awesome. Do you know he actually cut his teeth doing Columbo episodes?
Oh, what? Columbo is one of the greatest detectives of all time.
Yeah.
But Pacific Blue is not.
He used to write episodes of Columbo. And then, I mean, Steven Bochco didn't do Pacific Blue. Just, okay. Don't get that rumor out there. You're going to get the Bochco company suing the pants off me. I'm going to have to put on pants. Hey, while we're talking about bad, and this is one of the worst, bad spin-offs, Craig Lubin brings up Baywatch Nights.
After the sun goes down. Yes, because the beaches are closed. Mitch Buchanan's out in the streets.
Mitch Buchanan has spent the whole day under the hot sun on the Malibu beach, running, swimming, and now at night, he's going to go do more work.
Now, I can't let him say this because I used to watch this after Nightman. But to be fair, this was a winter month when the beaches were closed. But he was in California, which made no sense.
You're the best. You are the best. Oh my God, Flobo. You're the best. Because you got me going, oh, that makes sense. Maybe we should give that show another try. I was out there on the streamers looking for that show. Couldn't find it. Somebody's uploaded a bunch of episodes to YouTube. If you ever want to check out some Baywatch Nights.
That theme song, man. Whew.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Hey, we've got the #1 jiggle show on TV. What should we spin it off to? Well, we can do Baywatch Hawaii. Oh, that's good. Yeah, sure. Baywatch Hawaii. Yeah. And we can also do a rip-off of the X-Files.
That was season 2. Season 1 tried really hard to be Nash Bridges or whatever. What came first? You know what I'm saying?
Hey, any show Angie Harmon was on that show. Yeah. Any show that'll use Angie Harmon, you're okay with me. I love Angie Harmon.
You just gotta bring back Sledgehammer. That was a jam.
Sledgehammer. Oh my God. Sledgehammer. You guys got to check that one out. That was Sledgehammer. Hilarious. Okay, let me go through my notes because here we are.
Yeah, we totally ruined this. I hope someone comes to the show looking for like Star Trek actual analysis because we missed the mark week in and week out.
Badly. We missed the mark by light years off the mark. Yeah. Oh man, I do want to point out and ask you what you thought of the first part of this episode. Is showing Riker being nervous, being fearful. I was really impressed by the work that Frakes was doing. Did it resonate for you, Flobo?
I'm way too cynical for that. I thought that was a screen test. It was, okay, if Picard's not there, you get the next one up. Can you do these emotions? And go.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Because I don't mind that. I still think that's it's I do find that the exchanges with Shelby are weird. They're flirtatious, but angry, but hateful and resentful, but kind of hot. It's weird, the mix between these two. Also, and I don't know if you caught this on last week's episode, but when you and I had taped, we were asking, wait a minute, is she Brian Dennehy's daughter? She is.
Oh, that makes her less attractive in some way.
Ah!
I kid. I saw the porn stuff. We're good. I'm totally fine.
I cannot tell a lie. When I look at her, I look at those cheekbones and I look at that jawline and the pointy chin, and I go, yeah, that's Dennehy's daughter. Man, that would be tough for me.
That would be tough.
That would be. I would make it through. Don't get me wrong.
That's why you're my captain.
I'd just be like, please don't say anything your father would say. That's all I would do. That's all I would say. There was a lot of good acting in this episode. Admiral Hansen does amazing work.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you think of the good Admiral?
I thought it was fine. I know the Admiral role can run from being just expository to just being outright vile. So to have someone with some depth, I was fine with it. For sure. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking for him. George Murdoch. Have you, Flobo, seen Star Trek 5?
No, remember, I only watched the first 2 for that other Star Trek thing, and I said I'll leave it open in case you ever want to do these shows. But I can watch 5 if you like me to.
You know something, we'll watch it one of these days, you and me. Maybe the next time you come up. I always want. Yeah, we got to have you back at the compound, man. That was so much fun.
Yeah, I'm still eating. This guy has like a whole grove in his backyard, and the juiciest citrus I've had. That didn't have to. Oh my god! You didn't even have to like try. It just falls off the rind. Oh my goodness! It's good. It's good. Farmer John's is available now. Tell him I sent you, and you might call security. But there was lemon, there was melons, there was citrus, there was avocados out there.
Have the avocados ripened yet?
Yes, they have.
Oh, good. Because sometimes it could take a while. I did want to ask you if you liked the fruit.
Yeah,
it's just one of the few things we do here.
I haven't tried the melons. That's going to be this afternoon. So once I have that, I can tell you the full report. But what have I had so far?
I dig those melons. I hope you dig them too. Let's see. Picard. We do see a little bit of the torture of the Borg by cutting up and rebuilding Picard, and then the single tear. That was a little cliched for me. Were you okay with that, or?
I wanted some kind of. I think my biggest complaint about this series was a lack of human or emotions or elements. It just feels very plot driven. Our captain has been taken, so to find some sort of like, I've been tortured and this hurts or this is bad, I'm not really feeling it. I'm disgusted. I feel manipulated. Then yes, I'll take it. Cheesy as it is, I'll take it.
Interesting, because I did find that kind of cheesy, but it was 1990 and things were pretty cheesy.
It's the 90s.
I mean, honestly, Clarissa Explains It All is all you need to know about the 90s.
She did explain it all.
She had wacky hats. Let's see. So a lot of acting. Oh, the scene with Guinan.
Uh-huh.
Now that was interesting to me because I thought that was their moment of going, we've got an Academy Award winner here.
Right.
We got to put her to work. Give her some nice shots. Make her skin look amazing. I'm not sure Whoopi Goldberg has ever been more beautiful than she was as Guinan in these scenes. How did it hit you?
It did feel like, hey, we got this person in this dark bar usually. Let's not have her in this dark bar. And maybe that is the Oscar bump as it is. Maybe it is a reiteration to the crowd. Hey, look, if we lose Patrick Stewart, we're going to have ourselves a strong cast of characters. Because when she was like, do you know my relationship with Picard? I was like, are they going to have a backstory, like flashback? I was like, okay, no, I get it. You're reestablishing that if this guy were to leave, we still have people that know them and they can bring back stories and the door could be open for them.
And she gives him you got to stop being afraid. And the way you're going to do that is you're just going to let him go. You're not going to think that you can save Picard. You just got to let him go. And she says, you know, he and I are closer than friends. We're closer than family. And I'm willing to let him go. How about you? I'm not sure it hit for me when I first watched it. I think I might have thought, well, this is an extra scene. But I see it now, and it is deep. I mean, does it hit you deep or?
No, it doesn't. What do you mean? Like, how did it hit you deep?
It hit. Now, maybe it hits me deep because now I consider The Next Generation like one of the best series in the whole franchise. I'm not sure I felt that way at the time.
Yeah.
And it also hits me deep because I appreciate Frakes so much more, that I can see things land with him and I could see what his acting is and what he's doing with it. And without Captain Picard on the ship, now it's Captain Riker. He's a different guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not nearly as cocky, ding, as he normally is. And he really does need, at this point, some kind of rallying cry, some kind of boost. I don't know, you know, and maybe watching it multiple times, I'm able, honestly, I find so much in this episode, having seen it like 7 or 8 times now, it just kind of knocks me out. So it doesn't hit you in that way of like, emotionally he's broken, but by the end of this conversation, she's pushed him in the right direction. He knows what he's going to do.
I guess it serves that purpose, yeah. But I was with you where I go, oh, this is an extra scene, because if this scene did not air, Riker has already established that he's such a swashbuckler that if he dug deep off camera or to himself, it wouldn't have detracted. But hey, you know, if there's extra stuff and you pull from it, that's great.
There's another thing that I never noticed before, and that is, if you look at everything Locutus says and does, like when he addresses Riker as number one, it's kind of amazing, because I see it now and I go, oh, that's where Picard is speaking out through Locutus and saying, number one, I'm here. It's me. I see you. It's me. See me. Did that hit you at all?
I thought it was kind of the part of the progression. So yeah, I mean, it did its was intended. It was a story there. I guess my thing has always been, give me more things to latch on to make this the let me have the feelings that a lot of the fans of the episode had. To me, everything seemed very plot driven. So those moments are always great. You know?
Yeah. Craig Lubin points out, it could be argued that Guinan also knew that Picard would survive the Borg abduction. He had not traveled back in time to save her yet. That's all right. 4D chess, folks. Craig Lubin can play himself some 4-dimensional chess. It's
Don't
possible.
Even try.
It's possible. I mean, I do love how intellectually powerful she is in that moment, and she's so emotional too, kind of holding it in, but it was just kind of beautiful. Whoopi Goldberg work, beautiful Frakes work. And you know, normally I go, if Picard's not on the screen, I'm bored. That was me in 1990.
Wow.
I got to see some Picard. And Picard as Locutus. So this is one of those moments where our actor, who's been on a TV show for a while, gets to do something interesting with his character. And now Patrick Stewart's playing a villain. He's also playing a villain who has no emotions. So that's a little bit of an acting challenge.
Yeah.
Locutus, good villain for you?
Sure.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not good villain.
I think it's a hard 7. It's because we know Picard. We know what he stands for. We know he's a noble man. Him being compromised alone is that stuff. But as you guys know, I make the same 4 references, and so I'm going to pull from behind my award. Actually, the Green Lantern mythos. When Hal Jordan became Parallax, at first it was like, okay, he's just a mad villain. But when he had his own comeback tour, what was the year between Final Night and Rebirth? Like 13 years, 15 years? I'm gonna say that when he came back
Yeah,
during
that's tough.
Rebirth, and it was like, "Hey, look, I wasn't just a jerk. I was actually being pulled by this force, and I need to go on this tour to come back. And I was a Spectre for so many years." You go, "Oh my gosh, it's actually hero. Here's the hero's welcome." But as it is right now in these 2 episodes, I think pretty serviceable. What makes Locutus great now is because Picard is still remorseful of that time where he was Locutus. So I appreciate him more. But again, I'm seeing things out of order. So I don't know how to answer that question.
Right. Yeah, it is really important. In order to care about this is what I'm getting from our conversation. It is really important that it comes in order.
For the Locutus, yeah.
And one of the experiences I had as a comic book reader was I wasn't allowed in my family. I was not allowed to have comic books because they were quote unquote stupid.
Oh, whew. That's
And
fine. I thought they were like saying like they're anti-religious or something.
it was sort of a religious thing with my parents, but they were also snobs. So they didn't like all the violence. They didn't like all the implied sexuality of like tight clothes. I sound like I come from the town in Footloose.
Dancing's outlawed.
But eventually I did get into comics, and I took a lot of crap for it from my parents. But what constantly happened for me was there was backstory being alluded to. Backstory here, backstory there. This happened in X-Men #2 in 1968. This happened in 1978, and there I was in 1982 reading these comic books for the first time.
Yeah.
And I wasn't reading back issues either. That wasn't an option back in those days. You could only read the modern stuff, and they're making references, and you're like, yeah, I guess I'm gonna try to like build memories out of your references to previous episodes, issues, but I wasn't there.
Right.
And when stuff is all out of order like that, it does have a weird effect, and it doesn't hit me the way it hit somebody who had been buying giant size X-Men #1. True. And then all the episodes after that.
But that's my challenge when I'm watching these shows. Like I try to approach it as itself. So I would say, as a positive, this is an army that Starfleet cannot conquer like that because they're changing all the time. They somehow took your brightest mind and is basically compromised them, and it's a cliffhanger. And you have to wait months upon months to see how it's resolved. And you find a way to give him back, but you basically try all the Riker maneuvers in the books. That's great. But then when I hear someone goes, "This was the best episode of all time," I go, well, I mean, it was a complete episode and it made sense, but everything was so plot driven. It wasn't so much about getting back the man Picard. It was, hey, we need a captain. We're not going to apply for a new one. Let's get the old one back. That to me, I felt like there was some times where you could have really leaned on the human element of what that means to have yourself totally ingrained into a giant computer. And I felt for either for time or for spacing or pacing, it was more like, let's get our captain back. Yeah.
I have to agree with you, mostly because I saw this the way you had mentioned earlier, seeing it, which was by the end of the episode, they fix it.
Hey.
He's back. He's okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. They fixed it in, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh. But they did, and that's nice. And then the next episode, he goes home to the Picard chateau, to the vineyard, and takes a lot of crap from his brother. And it's let's take a look at what Joe Townsend has to say. To Flobo's point, Chain of Command also would have made a great multi-episode arc. Absolutely agree. With Picard and Jellicoe's storylines. Chain of Command is great. We should check that out soon. I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Flobo?
I said Jellicoe. That's a Townsend favorite.
Jellicoe, I think is so important for fans to understand that not every captain is a hero.
Right.
Not every captain is a benevolent, dad figure, father figure. Not every captain is swashbuckling. Some of them are just administrators.
Yeah.
And that's true in the military. That happens. Yeah, you got your warriors. Yeah, you got your great chieftains, but you also have your paper pushers.
Right.
And I do love that about Jellicoe, and I do love that in comparison to I mean, how often do you think a starship's going to have a great captain and a great first officer? And that's usually when they have both. That's usually like when we see the series.
We have buzz when things explode. We get the Enterprise G, Enterprise J.
Right.
Whoops.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we do have to keep blowing up the Enterprise in order to have these great things, but yeah, little sacrifices must be made sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, when they do finally solve this, they're looking for a command that Locutus can send to the rest of the Borg, and I do love the what Data is hooked into Locutus. He says, I can send him a command. What should it be? And I do love that Riker's like, how about power down all your weapons and surrender right now to us? Kind of a complicated command, I would say.
I would have said Earl Grey hot, personally. Hey, gotta roll the dice sometimes. Gotta shoot your shot.
That would have distracted him. That's a good point. Finally, Locutus himself says, sleep, Data, sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And that ends up being the command. Okay, how did you feel about that being the Deus Ex Machina, the god from the machine that solves everything? Is they just tell the Borg to go to sleep?
I think that was when I had my hands up going like, this guy told me to watch these 2 parts of these episodes. I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. And like I was saying, if I was watching this Saturday night, I would have came here guns a-blazing and be like, you know what? This sucks. At the same time, now I go, okay, well, there's no answer command would have been better on paper. Every command would have been the Deus Machina at that point. So just accept it. Yeah. It could be like, you know, I don't know, Wolf 359 or Worf sucks or whatever. It would have been the same thing.
Yeah. Interesting. This is also something I found in my research and something Joe Townsend puts up for us. Originally, Picard and Data were going to be merged into a strange hybrid, kind of paving the way for first contact.
I'm with that. That thought was going to happen. I thought, hey, let's hook up a computer to the Borg. Hello. And then it goes, oh, that didn't really become anything of consequence. All right.
Well, okay. I can justify it in the sense that what we're being told about the Borg is they're actually kind of boring machines.
Oh, what kind of machines, John? What kind of machines?
Boring.
Hey! Pee-wee's Playhouse. That's the word. Boring. That's the word. Okay.
That's not what I meant. I don't mean that they're boring villains. I think as machines, they are fairly mundane in how they were. Oh, you just enjoy it. You just sit back there and enjoy that.
Being me, smug Flobito.
Now, talking about bad endings, Craig Lubin says, at least Picard did not say Martha.
I actually like that on paper, but watching the movie, it's like, oh, that's going to be hard to justify to my boys. Like on paper, it made sense. Oh, yeah, I get that. Connections of human beings, even though they're kind of different. But watching the movie theater, like, oh, no, DCY, you had one shot. You had one shot.
The other day, and this is not something I normally do because I don't like Zack Snyder at all. But the other day I was on HBO Max having lunch, and I actually started watching the ultimate version. Anyway, it's like the long drawn out.
Oh, the Zack Snyder cut. It's not, yeah.
Zack Snyder cut, but of Superman versus Batman.
Oh.
And they set it up. They set it up beautifully, which is as Bruce Wayne's father is dying, the last thing he says is Martha.
Oh, yeah. It's like if there was a novelization, I don't know, it's not the whole point, or over time and forget this.
Don't worry about
it. But if it really was the case, you have this alien from another planet that basically assimilated to being American, knowing full well he could never be American because he lived with American customs and traditions, and people still say you're an alien. As a first generation American myself, that means a lot to me. I think that's pretty cool as well as Superman. And on Batman, the symbol of white privilege. He's a blue blood. This is why I think Batman can never be a minority, because he's seen as someone who has it all, but doesn't have his parents because his crime got them. And they're linked by a single name, their mothers, the wombs they carry them. To me, that was great to read. But to watch it, it was like, oh, that's just cringe. Oh, geez. Woo.
I have to agree with you, especially on the level of, look, I love Ben Affleck as Batman.
Fair, yeah.
I love him even more as Bruce Wayne. Actually, I think he plays an incredible Bruce Wayne. Probably because he is Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, exactly. He is.
Let's talk about Ben Affleck. Been successful since his early 20s. Yeah, the guy's pretty much Bruce Wayne. But that moment, he did not do a great job at that moment. And that kind of traded the whole thing. The baby and the bathwater went out.
Dang, and the bathwater, sheesh.
I hate to say it because I want these things to succeed. I want these things to be good. Interesting. Okay, Joe Townsend jumps in with Robert Pattinson. I still haven't seen this one. Was a terrible Bruce Wayne, although I enjoyed The Batman. Have you seen that one yet?
I have not seen it. It's definitely one of those things where it's like, I'll have some time. You look at the runtime, like, all right, you're going that Hamilton pile. I'll get to that when I get to that. Jeez.
Dude, you have not seen Hamilton yet?
No, come think it's like 90 minutes. It's like 3 hours. I got things to do.
Watch it in 3 parts. Oh my God, you've got to look. I am never one of those people who's like, you've got to see this Broadway show. It's the most important thing ever. Dude, you're gonna love Hamilton.
I've heard the mixtape. Immigrants get the job done. It's great.
Lin Miranda Manuel is totally cool with that. Oh yeah, you don't have to see the show. The mixtape's fine. Sure.
Exactly.
All that work I did for you, Flobo. It's for you.
Joe tells us 90-minute rule. So I miss 90-minute movies. My favorite movie of all time, Men in Black, is like 97 minutes. But when I watch movies and I'm not reviewing them for my channel, which is youtube.com, that's Flobo Boys, 25 minutes. If I don't know your main characters, the villain, and the plot in 25 minutes, your feature, I'm turning it off, man. I don't want to think through things. Which is kind of ironic because we ramble on our show all the time. But besides us.
Yes, but you know instantly who your heroes are.
Right.
You're like, oh, I'm not sure about this old white guy. Oh, thank God Flobo's here.
Yeah, woo!
Craig Lubin says, check out the graphic novel comic run Superman American Alien. It handles Kal-El as American quite well.
This is why I don't get mad, but I always roll my eyes when someone goes, Superman, he's so boring. And I go, okay, yeah, he's powerful, he's strong, he can blow up the planet if he wants to, but he has a day job. And anyone who's had a day job where you totally are abused verbally by your boss can attest that you want to snap their neck, but you can't. And here's somebody who came to this country who was basically assimilated to everything they want you to do, and you're still not considered one of them. That they can turn on you at any single moment. And I was like, well, people know who's Clark Kent. Why he changes his voice, man, because he has to work. And I think that's so clever. His power is restraint, y'all. Restraint. Oh, Craig Luby, you're so right.
There's another element to Superman that I just love to throw in, which is among white people. There is always racism from this kind of white to that kind of white.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is Kal-El has black hair, dark black hair, and bright blue eyes.
Yeah.
There's a tradition among the Irish of the black Irish.
Mm-hmm.
And Irish tend to be fair. Red hair, blonde hair. Not a lot of dark black hair. What would happen would be sailors would come up the coast of Western Europe, and specifically Spanish sailors would find themselves in Ireland. sometimes dumped, sometimes they would escape a ship, but they would now live in Ireland, these Spaniards, and they would meet a local girl and they would have a kid. And
Oh,
that kid would have dark hair and bright blue eyes and be treated like trash.
oh wow.
So there is coding. Now, I know that the creators of Superman were Jewish boys. They were very young Jewish guys. And they wanted to tell a story of a guy who had assimilated but was very alien. And so that's another white person racism story where they're talking about the Jewishness
Right.
of Superman. So you're absolutely right. It's deeply ingrained in the character that he is different. Even though he's tall, he's got a great build, he's handsome, but there's still always an otherness to him.
Absolutely.
Even in his whiteness. It's a really interesting story. I absolutely agree with you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Suggestion from Joe Townsell. Check out Larry Niven's Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure I've ever directly read it. I think I've read things about it. Yeah, how does Superman get busy? Because
questions I never thought about asking.
Another point for Joe Townsend: the best superhero movies and TV series are always based on the best graphic novels and comic series. That's absolutely true. Let's see if there's anything else that I've missed before we start winding this up. Joe Townsend brings up, it makes me wonder how different the Borg would have been if they went with the original insectoid hive mind concept. Do you think that would have been better, Flobo?
Better is kind of, I think it's more of a lateral change. It would be a lot more rich to go into that with the thing, but they still use a queen, still in simulation, they still work for the hive. It's still there. Like the ghost of that's still there.
Yeah, I mean I think the things that let's say that budget was not a constraint and that practical effects could easily have been done. Insectoids might have been more impactful. I feel like there's kind of something silly about how Borg look. You know, even when they put those fake arms on them, it's so obviously a fake arm because it's like extra long, like LOCUTUS has. You know, and there's just something kind of clowny and makeup-y about the Borg. So I wonder if that weakens them.
I think if there were insectoids, it still would become plot driven on that level. So my complaints would not change. But I think for the spectacle of it all, it'd be like, oh wow, this raises the stakes because Picard's physically changing into something that we are as a people are afraid of, or we think we're greater than, and the whole insect thing.
Do you feel, as I do, that this is the moment where Trek goes to another dimension of seriousness?
That dimension?
The Next Generation for the first 3 seasons had been working really hard to kind of grow out of the restraints that Gene Roddenberry put on it. And now he's gone. He's not on the show anymore, or he's more like an honorary officer among Starfleet now. But the younger guys are all writing and cranking out the legends that will become Star Trek. And we do get a lot more like personal with Picard from this point forward. Was that a good move in your opinion, Flobo?
I think a show has to evolve and be its own thing. I can't pinpoint watching it when the Roddenberry thing is like, hey, you go sit in the back and watch this be, okay? But yeah, after a certain time, it does become its own. I always, you know what? I did my Green Lantern reference. What reference I'm missing? Oh, Archie comics, great.
Yeah.
In Archie comics, you know, there's certain artists that you love. Dan Parent is like the Archie comic artist of record, and he's still alive because he grew up with Archie comics and made him his own. So why not give a chance to grow? That's how you make things for new generations.
I mean, look, we know what eventually happened with Next Generation, which is it went the full 7 seasons. 7 seasons, basically, if you go more than 7 seasons, the chance that your show is in syndication being played against another episode of your show is going to happen. You now have too many episodes once you get to 7 and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the show that went the full 7 seasons. So of course they had to get deeper. They had to be more character driven. They had to show more going on with characters. It couldn't just always be spectacle. Speaking of spectacle, did you like the amount of special effects and CGI? Because there was a lot more of that in this one than previous episodes.
Yeah, made an event television. I know Anthony Zuiker is the guy gets credited with quoting feature television, but for what it was back then, yeah, 10 years before CSI, of course.
That's a good point too. I like how Joe Townsend points out they didn't start removing organic eyes and amputating limbs until the budget got bigger.
Are you supportive of this, Joe? Or
I think
yes.
Well, Joe's a horror author.
Yeah, fair enough.
That kind of makes sense.
Learn more at joetownsend.com. Chill.
You're so good at that. We are almost at an hour and a half. We're at an hour and 20 right now, which is freaking crazy. I thought I'd really organized this episode.
We did. We just let's do a recap longer than the episode itself. And I was like, of course, dear Captain. Let's do it. So anyway, Martha is actually the name of both. No, I'm just kidding.
Like literally twice the length.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, so next week, I'm going to throw this at you.
Oh.
I think we had discussed this. Next week is going to be a classic TOS, the original series, Star Trek episode.
TOS,
it
lay it
is
on me.
The Man Trap.
Ooh, now that's kinky.
I will be sending you the link for that one. And it is from the first series. It is the first... Is it the first Star Trek? It's one of the first Star Trek episodes I ever remember seeing as a child. Oh my gosh. And look, Joe Townsend, who's a genius, says it was the first broadcast.
Townsend, a little tidbit.
I had such a good time watching it because I was such a little kid. I never knew the show existed. And when I was like, oh my God, it's like spaceships and ray guns and monsters. I love this show. So we're going to be, I can't wait to hear what you think of The Man Trap when we do that next week here on Starbase 80, Mr. Boyce.
Whee!
And Mr. Boyce, how can people find you and support you other than following you on Patreon, which I do, and it is an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, you get to see me try things and gag on them stuff, read some books, and of course my photo gallery is in the Patreon, patreon.com/FloboBoys. But at Flobo Boys, for all of your social media is your fancy Instagram and Twitter. Flobito.com is the website, FLOBITO.com.
And Starbase 80 is going to be back next week, 11 a.m. here on the Best Coast, or 2 p.m. on the venerable, much respected, much loved East Coast, where both Flobo and I are from. So I don't know why I keep going, California's better than everything, even though we're from the Northeast.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Bada boom.
But, it helps you appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I think I'm not sure this is going to work for everybody, but Craig Lubin did find us a link for Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex. You should go check that out. Larry Niven is a genius. And thanks to everybody who joined us. Craig and Joe and Keith Jacobson was with us. Also, we had Craig Robinson. Craig Robinson from the UK is with us. It's wonderful. And I think that does it. Flobo, anything you want to say to close out this episode?
Wesley Crusher looked pissed the hell off. Let's do it.
That works for me. Next week, monster episode, The Man Trap. Be sure to be with us then. Flobo Boys, you are the best. Thank you so much.
You're the best.
And please join us next week. We'd love to see you then. Hey, Flobo, I finally watched Lower Decks season 2. Oh my
And?
God, it's so good.
Finally.